Hello and welcome to my channel, Rhino here. Today I'm looking at a video on a channel called David Lines, though I'm almost certain that he just reposted this clip from somewhere else, but it's Baugh, the creationist whose arguments are so bad that Creation Ministries International calls them unsound science, and Answers in Genesis makes it clear that while they agree with his conclusions, people should be aware that he does not represent mainstream creationism. In other words, this week's episode is a bit of a fluff piece because summer is sometimes too busy for me to be doing in-depth research. So let's go!
I want to continue to talk to you today about creation versus evolution.
And I want to continue to talk to you today about how those two things are not mutually exclusive. Seriously, I feel like this is an almost weekly reminder at this point that God created via evolution is an option. It's not a testable option, so it's ultimately scientifically useless, but it's still an option for those who want to cling to their religion for whatever reason.
And the specific topic is creation versus evolution. Man is central in the mind of the Creator.
Yes, we are central in the mind of the Creator, which is why the Creator created in a way that makes us look like a random meaningless blip in a nothing corner of the depths of the cosmos. Yeah, I know in last week's video I pointed out that this is not a great argument against intelligent design, but if you're going to say that we were central in the mind of whatever being made us, then it does bear mentioning that when looking at the universe as a whole, we are nothing.
In fact, the very profile of man is an awesome profile.
I don't know, if you're going to describe your profile like that, I feel like you're bragging about dick size. And while I don't know this from experience myself, I am told by some of my penis-enjoying friends that there tends to be an inverse relationship between the amount of bragging and actual size. And being someone who will use any excuse to talk about penises on Twitter, I polled my followers, and the results of that poll support this idea. So there you have it, it's now a scientific fact that bragging about penis size makes your dick smaller. What was this video about again?
He's the only bipedal individual, object in the creation who is genuinely bipedal, is comfortable walking upright.
Well, first and foremost, I have to ask, why does being bipedal mean better? There are plenty of advantages to walking on all fours, as can be evidenced by the fact that bipedalism is so rare in mammals. But secondly, that statement is just flat out wrong. Every single bird is bipedal when walking on the ground. In fact, the fastest extant biped is the ostrich, clocking in at 70 kilometers an hour. So, bipedalism is unusual for mammals, but absolutely nothing special overall.
Other life forms can do so temporarily, but only man is totally comfortable in that particular posture.
And the birds. So that's 7 billion humans and about 100 billion birds, roughly. It's hard to count birds because they, move and stuff. So, if there's 100 billion birds, that's a conservative estimate, that's about a 14-to-1 ratio of birds to humans. So there are about 14 times as many bipedal non-human animals out there as humans. And even if you were right, I fail to see how being bipedal is somehow evidence for a creator or evidence against evolution. In fact, I would say that our transition to bipedalism left behind so many problems that it is actually great evidence for evolution. There are a lot of band-aid solutions piled on top of each other to aid in survivability, but a redesign from scratch would have been a much better move. Just look at our feet. 26 distinct individual bones. This is a relic from our tree-dwelling ancestors who would have used their feet to grasp and climb. This myriad of separate moving parts leads us to problems like collapsed arches, shin splints, plantar fasciitis, Achilles tendonitis, and more. Our backs developed an S shape to help us balance our heads, which results in chronic back pain, vertebrae fractures, herniated discs, and more. Bipedalism is quite literally a pain.
And it was Dr. Henry Morris who pointed out that man's very body is specifically planned to be most suited for divine fellowship. First, the erect, upright posture.
Divine erect fellowship. Are you trying to get dick jokes thrown at you? Because this is how you get dick jokes thrown at you.
The upward gazing countenance, ready to view the Creator, at least in thought and concept.
The fact that we can look up, that's really where you're going? And then you qualify that with view the Creator in thought and concept? Do I need to look up to think about or conceptualize things? Because in my experience, when people contemplate God, they tend to look down. Sure, sometimes you get the hands up, looking up thing during worship services, but even then there's a tendency to throw your hands up and look down. So we can look up and down. But there are other animals that are better at looking up than us. I mean, just look at rays. They literally cannot look down. They can only look up because of where their eyes are. So does their upward-facing countenance show that they were central to the mind of the Creator? They look up more than we do. And birds, you know those other bipeds? They can also look up. So we've got bipedal with the ability to look up as evidence that we were central in God's mind so far. Both apply perfectly to birds as well, though. In fact, birds can soar gracefully through the heavens, so it seems like they are better designed for divine erect fellowship than us.
The facial expressions varying with emotional feelings.
Okay, so we do have a one-up on the birds for this one, but are you seriously trying to tell me that other mammals don't have facial expressions that vary with emotion? Happy chimp, sad chimp, angry chimp. Okay, that last one was Andy Serkis. Here's a real angry chimp. Happy dog, sad dog, angry dog. So there you have facial features in non-human animals displaying different emotions. No wonder not even Ken Ham considers your arguments to be any good.
The brain and tongue designed for articulate speech, to talk with and listen to the Creator Himself.
I mean, there are other animals out there that can speak and understand human languages.
Bounce, bam, bam, bounce, bam, bam, woo! Alexa, all light on. Okay. Alexa, all light on.
Okay. What's a dog say? Where are African Greys from?
But I will grant you this one. We are the best at talking in the animal kingdom. But just because there is one trait that we are better at than any other animal does not mean that we were designed. Cheetahs are the best sprinters in the world. They must have been central to the mind of their creator. All praise Cheetah God. Clearly the cheetah was designed to run alongside the creator cheetah himself in divine fellowship.
So man is very central in the mind of God in the entire creation.
Well, you've listed a bunch of traits that are not unique to humans, and then listed one single one that actually is mostly unique to humans. The fact that we have a few unique traits does not make us special, especially when every single species out there pretty much by definition has unique traits of its own. I mean, if there wasn't something unique about a particular group of organisms, why would we give them their own unique species name? So, somewhat ironically, uniqueness is not actually unique.
Not only is that true from the biblical creation standpoint, but from the scientific creation standpoint, it was stated by Harvard-educated astrophysicist John A. O'Keefe of NASA, stated that if the universe had not been made with the most exacting precision, we could never have come into existence.
Sorry guys, I didn't know when I chose this video that this was going in the same direction as last week's video, but just to reiterate for those of you who haven't been keeping up with the Pseudoscience Uprising series, the fine-tuning argument presupposes evolution and old ages for the Earth and universe. The whole argument is based on what values for the fundamental constants would result in stars that are capable of producing carbon, which would allow for the evolution of carbon-based life. If you want to posit a deity of some kind that set the constants at a point that would allow the evolution for life, you're welcome to do that. But just be aware that you are supporting evolution with that argument, so maybe don't bring it up when you're trying to argue against evolution.
It is my view, he said, that these circumstances indicate the universe was created for man to live in.
See, and there's the jump that I just could never get behind. The fundamental constants are such that they allow stars to produce carbon. This carbon is spread throughout the universe over billions of years as the stars die. New stars have carbon-rich planets orbiting them. The carbon on these planets allows for the evolution of carbon-based life. Therefore, the entire universe was created specifically for one particular species of carbon-based life that would inhabit an infinitesimally minuscule part of the universe. I could almost agree with this argument up until that last point, except for the fact that introducing a deity at the beginning raises more questions than it answers, but that last jump in logic is just way too much for me.
And I would certainly concur with that. But it was not a series of development where man could finally realize his posture in the universe. It was by the direct creation of Almighty God.
Okay, so you bring up the fine-tuning argument to say that you agree with it right before throwing the whole thing in the garbage? Why even bring it up then?
Following this fine-tuning of the universe, it's been stated that gravity is fine-tuned to 1 part in 100 million, billion, 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 billion.
1 part in 100 million, billion, 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 billion?
1 part in 100 million, billion, 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 billion.
Wow!
Physicist, philosopher Robin Collins, a recognized scholar, admitted that.
3 things here. First, the fine-tuning of the gravitational constant doesn't have much to do with a created universe that is only 6,000 years old. That number doesn't need to be that fine-tuned in order to sustain life itself. It only needs to be fine-tuned to sustain stars that will be able to create carbon and spread that carbon out when they go supernova. So if you want to have a universe that is only 6,000 years old, the gravitational constant doesn't matter that much. Second, Robin Collins is a philosopher, yes, and he does have a scientific undergrad degree, but he never actually put that degree to use, focusing instead on philosophy, so to introduce him as a physicist-philosopher is rather disingenuous. And thirdly, the gravitational constant has been observed to fluctuate by as much as 3 parts in 10 trillion, so it doesn't seem that it's quite as fine-tuned as you were making it out to be. Though admittedly, I did arrive at that number by looking at the chart of the gravitational constant's fluctuations and counting zeros, and I am notoriously bad at counting zeros, so I could have used the wrong label there, but I'm pretty sure you have to go quite a few more zeros down before you get to that 1 part in 100 million, billion, 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 billion. And if I recall correctly, that number actually comes from Stephen Hawking's book A Brief History of Time, and it was about the value of the gravitational constant 1 second after the Big Bang being that specific to the result in the universe that we see. The fundamental constants were different during the time surrounding the Big Bang, so that wouldn't necessarily have been the number that we ended up with, and if I counted my zeros properly, it fluctuates outside that specificity quite regularly. So again, you're using an argument that assumes the universe is billions of years old, and that the Big Bang is a fact, in order to support your idea that the universe was created 6,000 years ago.
So where did we come from? We came from the very special directive hand of God.
God came us out with his special directed hand. Got it.
A little schoolgirl stepped to her mother.
Oh my god. Oh my god. That was bad. Okay, I'm sorry. I did not watch this video in advance. I am scripting on the fly here. I legitimately had no idea that his next words after my God masturbating joke were going to be about a little schoolgirl and her mother. I mean, I'm still keeping the joke in, so obviously I don't feel too badly about it, but for the sake of my sanity, whenever he says and whatever jokes I make about it next, we'll assume that this schoolgirl is at least 18, and maybe it's her stepmother rather than her mother. Maybe I'm in the wrong tab and I started the wrong video. Let's check. Nope, that was the creationist. Okay, so let's see what this schoolgirl and her stepmom are getting up to. I wonder if Ted Cruz is watching.
Well, I wish my stepdaughter would like me a little bit more.
Well, maybe go do something with her. Go get your nails done, spa day, girl bonding stuff.
And said, Mother, how did the human race arrive?
And then that stepmother invited over the 18-year-old schoolgirl's boyfriend so she could show them both firsthand.
Her mother said, well, sweetheart, God made 2 individuals, Adam and Eve. They had children, and the whole human race is the result of those children.
So, yeah, incest. The Bible is about how we are the results of incest. Twice.
Okay.
I mean, yeah, okay, if that's your thing. I'm not into kink shaming. It is one of the biggest porn categories out there, after all.
A couple of days later, she stepped up to her dad and said, Dad, where did the human race come from? Her dad said, well, sweetheart, you see, there were lower life forms, much like monkeys.
Not lower, different. Every species on the planet is just as evolved as every other species because it's been the same amount of time from the last universal common ancestor for everybody.
And they continued to develop until finally man had the brain, that life form had the brain capacity where he could be called man. So we came from lower life forms, from monkeys, and here we are, the human race has arrived.
I could pick apart the semantics of this because that was a terrible way to phrase it, but let me just put it simply and correctly. Every baby is a little bit different from its parents. Over time, these differences add up. And not every baby is different in the same ways as other babies, so the differences will add up in different ways, depending on where the babies are and which differences help those babies grow up to have babies of their own. And over long periods of time, all these differences have added up in the different ways to give us all the different plants, animals, fungi, protists, and Monera that we see today, including humans.
The little girl went back to her mother and said, "You said that we came from Adam and Eve and the creation of God. But Daddy said we came from monkeys." The mother said, "Well, I was talking about my side of the family. He was talking about his side of the family."
Ha ha? I'm a bit of a connoisseur of bad jokes, but that one was too bad for even me to repeat.
Well, as humorous as that might be,
Or might not.
there's a real point. Actually, scientists have found that there is no bona fide evidence linking man to lower life forms.
Yeah, but only because science has found that there's really no such thing as lower life forms. We definitely are linked to current life forms through common ancestors in past life forms, but lower is meaningless.
It is that naturalistic man himself views his estate as having developed from lower life forms.
Okay, I'm confused, so let's listen to that whole sentence again to see if we can make sense of it.
Scientists have found that there is no bona fide evidence linking man to lower life forms. It is that naturalistic man himself views his estate as having developed from lower life forms.
Okay, so now that we've heard the whole sentence without me interrupting, I'm still confused. Are you saying that science has found that we didn't evolve, but they have also found that we like to think that we evolved? Or was the second part of that sentence supposed to be separated from the scientists have found part of the statement? So scientists have found that we have not evolved, but you're saying that we still push evolution because we like to think that we're evolved? Either way, this doesn't make any sense.
Yet the real truth points to a divine, compassionate Creator.
So compassionate that he flooded the whole world once to kill all the people he regretted creating. Kill in a painful way, I might add. Drowning probably isn't the worst way to go, but it's definitely a scary and painful way to go. He could have had everyone he didn't like die peacefully in their sleep, like he did when he murdered the Egyptian children. That was compassionate, right? And let's not forget the eternal torture chamber that all non-believers go to after they die. Super compassionate to torture billions of people for a literal eternity. So that's it for today. Today's comment of the day comes to us from Jim Yost, who says, "When Solomon was a young man, the Lord told him he was giving him an anointing to be the wisest man who ever lived for all time." 1 Kings 3:12, King James Version. Many years later, when Solomon was an old man, he made the statement that a fool's voice is known by a multitude of words. Ecclesiastes 5:3. Then about 3,000 years later, another wise man made this statement: "To the intelligent man or woman, the world is infinitely interesting and mysterious, but the stupid have an answer for every question." Edward Abbey. Yep, that sounds an awful lot like creationism to me. I'm comfortable with saying I don't know when it comes to things like what came before the Big Bang, how did the fundamental constants end up with the values that they have, what are the specifics of abiogenesis, and stuff like that. But it tends to be the creationists who insist that they have an answer to these questions, despite their answer being completely untestable. So there you have it. The Bible says to stop being a creationist, it makes you look foolish. Links to social media and ways to support the channel are in the description, as well as my P.O. Box address. Special thanks this week to Steve Holiday, who purchased the Standy Uppy wireless charger for my phone, which will let me use the app that reminds me which hotkeys on my keyboard do what without draining the battery. And yes, Standy Uppy is the technical term for it. See you next time! This myriad of separate moving parts leads us to problems like collapsed arches, shin splints, plantar fasciitis. I'm going with fasciitis, because I like shit. I don't like shit. I like this. Fucking A.